Hi, I'm Molly Barnes. Welcome today to an interview I'm doing with Fusaro, Darrell Fusaro. He's an artist, he's a filmmaker, he does a little bit of everything. And I first showed him in New York about 10 years ago. I discovered him and had some shows of his seemingly innocent dolls, which weren't at all, which you will see. Welcome.
Hi.
Darrell, where'd you get the name Fuzzy?
It's from my nickname. It's a nickname from Fusaro, my last name. Yeah, my dad had it, even my aunts had it. It's, you know, just Fusaro, Fuzzy, it's short for Fuzzy, for Fusaro.
Well, you're doing a lot of trendy things now. You're combining a lot of art and technology, and you're also using seemingly innocent dolls to talk about what's something that's not only hostile, but very, there's a downside to it. How did that come into being?
Well, actually, I rediscovered the dolls that I was using in the work that you showed at your gallery about 10 years ago, about that time, and they were those little people that don't have any arms or legs, and I mean, they look innocent enough. And
But they're getting, excuse the expression, screwed. And
in the paintings, yeah.
I had a long dream last night about the dolls being raped, and so I guess you had a big influence on me with those paintings.
Yeah, you know, when I was a kid, I just set them up in scenes, you know, fantasize about, you know, places I wanted to be and go. But now as an adult, I revisited them in a different way, where I can take them and now go to those places that, you know, we really don't want to, I really don't want to visit, but they're you know, they exist, you know, and that was my way of getting all that out. And some of them are based on childhood experiences.
What was your childhood like? It sounded like something out of the Sopranos television show.
Yeah, it was a little bit like that. You know, unfortunately, my grandfather was murdered when I was young, and he was a union official, so those implications, you know, were given to my family, and growing up, it was a little crazy there for a while.
Tell us about this painting that we're seeing on the screen.
Okay, this one is School Nights, and the reason it's titled that is because, of course, it seemed like on the special night of a school night, you got to be behaved and do your homework. Of course, some insanity would erupt in the house, and there the mother's laying on the floor, the kitchen table's tilted on its side, and the father is standing right above the mother with his shadow cast upon her. And there's the child,
there's Darrell back there,
hiding out, not sure what to do, feeling frightened, feeling, you know, unable to help my mother, or not wanting this to happen, just powerless back there.
It's funny, many artists that I talk to, and especially photographers, say that they use this as an outlet to get away from an unhappy childhood.
Yeah. It actually is very therapeutic to me. This one's Who's Next? And there you see the female laying in the bed, and these three guys coming in, you know, the construction worker, the cowboy, and the other male figure, and their shadows are like casting towards her, like they're descending upon her.
One time I asked de Kooning, I said, you never put arms or legs on your models. You know, you have these voluptuous Marilyn Monroe lookalikes, but no arms or legs, and he said they're unnecessary.
Right.
It seems almost like that's what you've done with your people.
Right, right. Well, yeah, you could say it. The mood is created through the shadows and the positions and the angle, and it's interesting because when I had a solo exhibition a couple years ago in Manhattan at the Lisa Parker Gallery, and they had 50 of these on each wall, and some big ones, and people would walk into the show, and first,
I want these for my children.
Yeah, I want these for my children. They're bright, they're positive, and then all of a sudden they'd be like, oh my God, you know, wow, that happened to you too, or oh, geez, you know, this is going on in this painting, and so it's like real life, you know, the family looks great on the outside, you know, and then there's always something uncomfortable going on that, you know, like, you know, for instance, oh my God, I never knew, you know, his mother was an alcoholic, or we never knew your father was dying of cancer. You know, everything seemed perfect. And that's what these paintings are all about. You know, they seduce you with fun, attractive colors, and they're just harmless little toys, and then you look at them for a minute, and you're like, oh, and you get it.
Well, there's a New York artist, Mike Cockrell. He used to do little young girls in training bras that he got out of the New York Times, but there was something so salacious that people banned them. They were not allowed to advertise. The paintings themselves were so shocking, and yet it was actually just following that interest that we see in young girls.
Right, and they're taken right from, like, catalogs.
Exactly, exactly.
So in the catalog, we secretly, ooh, wow, but we don't want to say it's in a catalog, it's not for that, and then he just brought the attention there. You know, and then we all go there, and we don't necessarily may not like that side of ourselves, but it's there.
There's an artist in New York named Ashley Bickerton. His whole painting style is based on logos. What he eats, what he consumes, what he wears on his clothes, his underclothes, and his entire personality is there, his portrait, based only on logos.
Oh, wow.
But that's somewhat what you're talking about, the idea of mass producing and then taking that, making it fine art.
Right.
You told me once that you had an art teacher who suggested to you just paint fruit for 3 months, and then you would know how to paint. Tell me about that.
All right. When I was in art school, of course, I was overzealous like every art student. You want to know the secrets to doing a landscape or the secrets to doing a face properly. And I went to this teacher at the time, Teddy Bonavito, who showed with Picasso, believe it or not.
You're kidding.
No, he was
Where? Where?
Yeah, somewhere in New York. And I mean, he was really old when I had him as a teacher, so he's since deceased. But at the time, I'm going, you know, I want to know how to do face. I want to do landscapes. And he goes, just paint fruit. I'm like, just paint fruit? What the hell is that? I don't want to just paint fruit. You know, I want to paint things that mean something. He goes, you just paint fruit for the entire summer, and you'll be able to paint anything. So I was like, all right, I'll try it. So for the whole summer, just to prove him wrong, I painted fruit every single day. The end of the day, I mean the end of the summer, I drove this girl I met at a biker party, who later became my wife, to New York City to drop her off, and I had my pad and supplies with me, and I saw this crowd of older people doing landscapes, cityscapes. So I figured, well, I'll sneak in with them, and I won't be embarrassed if mine stinks. So I go set up.
Where were you?
I was at Gramercy Park. No, I was in Gramercy Park, beautiful brownstones, gorgeous. And I get in there, and I set up my easel, and I swear to God, Molly, I just started, it just happened. The painting, the art, to be able to create the cityscape, it wasn't about, like, you draw a building like a box, or it was about seeing. Because all summer long, instead of just looking at 2 round circles for apples, I wasn't doing that anymore. I was going, these aren't 2 apples. This is a line here. This is blue here. This is red here. So I was able to break down the city subconsciously without trying to figure it out. It was amazing. I mean, it was
well, your dolls all have a modeled quality based on a lot of depth and shadow and light. It's almost a reminiscent of fruit.
Yes, it is. And I like the color, too. Color is a big thing with me. I love bright colors. That's why I love, remember we were talking about the artist I like, and it was all pop art. Oh, this one's keeping a secret.
Oh, okay, tell us about this.
Well, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I need to go to the real situation behind this painting, but, you know, there's the little boy, and he's seeing the 2 adults, you know, having sex or whatever you may think there with the woman lying down.
I've never had sex that way. No, I'm
well. Okay. You never did it with a guy in a cowboy hat. And the cowboy, you know, in that sort of position there, and he's back there like, uh-oh, you know, look what I stumbled.
First time people see their parents having sex.
Oh, this is, my God, what's he doing with that chicken in his bed? And this is that fear of getting caught masturbating by your parents, which thank God I never was, but you know, you have to live with that. And what if they had walked in? So I did it with the chicken in the bed, and here's the 2 parents.
Larry Rivers, I remember in his biography, talked about that, his parents catching him. I thought it was such a strange thing that he told the story, but I guess it's pretty common.
Oh, yeah.
Now tell us more about what it was like growing up for you.
Well, you know, I mean, today I think it's I'm very fortunate. I had a colorful childhood, you know, but at the time, and you know, you look back and you go, oh my God, it was pretty amazing I survived it, because me and my younger brother were basically orphaned by the time I was 18 and he was 14. You know, my grandfather had been murdered.
Well, how did he get murdered? What happened?
He got murdered on New Year's Day.
In New Jersey? Where was it?
Yeah, it was in his union office. He was supposed to be at a meeting in New York City, and New Year's Eve, and I was just sleeping over at my grandparents like I normally did, and I knew something was wrong the next morning, because normally I'd wake up in another bedroom. My pop-pop would come home and lift me up while I was asleep and put me somewhere else, you know, to sleep, and he'd sleep with Granny. And I woke up in bed, you know, in my grandmother's bed all alone, and I went downstairs and we found out that you know, they had slit his throat and beat him, and he was dead. And then my mom snapped right after that, and you know, she'd teach us art on the front lawn, and then she'd jump on her motorcycle and go down to the bar and come back later.
Was your mom kind of a hippie?
She was more of an eccentric than a hippie. I mean, she's got a tattoo of the rose on her ankle, and she was very attractive, and she was an artist, and she drove got a motorcycle, which my dad particularly wasn't fond of, but I guess he thought she looked sexy on it. So, but and then she split, and we grew up with my dad and his buddies, Uncle Al, Lefty, Eddie Buckaroo, Charlie the Fish. And they called him Charlie the Fish because his mouth went like this. Whale, Telko, it was a cast of characters.
I can't believe it. Did your parents or did your father encourage your interest in art?
You know, my father, that was the one thing he respected, was talent. And although he called me a cabadoche most of my life, which means head of stone in Italian, the one thing he always encouraged, that he never had anything negative to say about, was my drawings, and it was really the one thing that we, you know, that I felt I was on the same level with him.
Darrell, do you think that artists are different than other people?
You know, it's hard to say now that I get older and I spend a lot of time with other artists, and I have other friends that aren't, you know, artists like painters or... I think everybody has a creative side. I don't think necessarily artists should say, well, I'm an artist because I paint and I had gallery shows, or I'm an artist because I'm a director of big films. I mean, I know people who do creative things all the time that make them, and it's talking about that process of being creative that excites me, you know, because it's just I gotta always be creating something. I mean, sometimes it's something as innocuous as changing the furniture in my house, because it's creative. It's getting to that place in my head that makes me feel fulfilled, and you know, I'm discussing that more with people, and then it's like, look what I made, instead of, oh, do you have a show? What have you done so far?
Right.
It's coming out of this place of defense. Now I'm maturing enough to that we're all now discussing, like, back to being that innocent child. Wow, look what I made. Oh, that's great. And then getting inspired from someone else's art instead of envious. You know?
Do you think actors are different than artists? Painters, visual artists?
It's a totally different medium, but I believe the place where you need to get to be a good actor or a good artist is that emotional center, that place where you can, you know, where you come from a place other than your intellectual. You know, like acting would be like, okay, I walk over here and I'm going to say this line like this. The good actors seem to allow themselves to, you know, be that, and it comes out naturally, just like painting. You know, I'm going to paint this like this, and I've tried to do that, and it's coming from that intellectual space, and then I'm fighting the whole process. Whereas instead of just, you know, I want to try this, and I try it.
You don't have to answer this, but do you drink or do drugs?
Well,
don't answer. The reason I say that is a lot of artists say that it's much more difficult for them to paint or to write when they stop drinking or stop using. And I think sometimes that people are very afraid not to drink or use because they're afraid they don't have anything inside.
Well, I've done it both ways, and I'll tell you, I find it much... The reality of the situation is though drinking seems like, yeah, this is the artistic, ooh,
right,
the
de Kooning, Paul,
ooh,
yeah,
in my studio, and you know, that's all a bunch of horseshit, I think, because I couldn't get to the places I get to now drunk. If I was drinking, you know, I wouldn't be able to get to where I'm able to go now, you know, not drunk or not drinking. And it's scarier, you know, because now the risk is high because I'm conscious of the full thing. I can't just get loaded and go slap paint. You know, now it's like, here's my blank canvas. Oh my God, is this going to be good or is this going to stink? And I got to jump in like jumping in a pool. And once I'm in, you know, once I'm started, it's fine.
Now, you told me that you love color. And also that you used to make your own pastel colors to get bright colors.
Yeah.
How did you know how to do that? Or how did that come about?
I had to learn how to do that through books and talking to people at the art supply store. And yeah, because I started doing those paintings huge, like 5 feet by 7 feet. And that's a lot of pastel. And I work wet with water.
Why?
Well, because I don't like dry surfaces. It bugs me, and I don't like the scratchiness of pastel on paper. And I discovered it by mistake. I shared an art studio with printmakers, and they had their printmaking paper soaking in water, and I just went to it. The pastel dissolves on the paper. It becomes like finger painting. So it's like being a child again, and it's cool, and it's mushy, and the colors just flow and swash, and then once it dries, they solidify. And it's more challenging, too, because you've got to complete the painting before any part of that paper dries. Or that part of the painting is going to look like a different artist did it, because now I'm working dry again. So you got to run around, and the big paintings, I had to keep wet on the floor of my studio and go all the way around them and step on them and try to tip over and miss spots and fill them in. And so I needed to make bigger and bigger pastels to fill bigger and bigger areas. And I'd buy the pigments and roll it up with the gum arabic or the other mediums and let them dry, and then I had my...
I had an artist I represented named Dan Citron, and when he sold a painting, he would have the new buyer sign a contract that he had visitation rights. Do you hate to sell your work? How do you feel about it?
You know what? Once I give birth to a painting, you know, for lack of a better word, once I give birth to it, I'm kind of done with it, and I want to do something. I mean, I'm excited by it, and then all of a sudden the excitement kind of wears off, and then when someone goes to buy it, then all of a sudden it comes back to life for me, and there is that like, oh, I really don't want to give this up, but I got to eat, so I
do it, yeah.
So I do it, you know. And then I've been fortunate. Most all the people that have bought my work really enjoy my work. And I'm pretty much open person, and that door is always open, you know, and actually they'll keep in touch with me, send me cards and stuff, so I've been very fortunate.
How did you end up in California? New York really seems to be the art center of the world. Why here?
Delusions of grandeur. Yeah, I did a short video when I was back there, and...
you were working as a doorman in a hotel. I was working
as a doorman as a hotel, making a fortune. God bless that place. And I did a little documentary, arts, because I wanted to work with a new medium, so I started playing around with film, and I did this little documentary, and of course, some big director came and, wow, this is great, and if you're ever in California or whatever, I'll help you out, and you're fantastic. So I packed up my wife, and we came out to, you know, the hills of Beverly, and we get out here, call him up, you return my call, sorry, I can't help you, and I'm like, what the hell? So I'm out here doing nothing, and I meet some guy on the street. We become friends, you know, in the neighborhood. And he says, you're an artist, right? And you're looking for work. I said, yeah. He goes, you want to paint neon tubes with my mom for $10 an hour? And I'm like, oh, jeez. I had shows in New York, and I'm going to be painting neon tubes with illegal immigrants. So I said, all right, I'll do it. So I painted neon tubes. One thing leads to another. They turn out to be miniatures for a set. For a film, big feature film, a Disney film, and it was Con Air. And I ended up moving up the ladder within the span of 6 months doing these special effect model, and then I ended up getting hired on to coordinate the plane crashing through Las Vegas, through the sign I built, the fake Hard Rock Hotel sign, and you know, and it's just been it's sort of like you just go with the flow, you know.
And what's your day job today?
Today I work in public access, believe it or not, and I love it.
But you went in one day just to work, and then there was nobody there, and you got moved right up the ladder.
Yeah, it was another one of those things, just going with the flow. I was actually doing a documentary on a band, and I went into public access to see about just airing it, and I started talking with the guy. I had no idea, you know, I didn't go there looking for a job, and we were talking. He said, you know, you make a good production coordinator. I told him about Con Air. We were just small talk, and I said, great, what does it do? And I could direct the shows and stuff. I said, super. And he goes, well, why don't you apply? And I applied, and God was fortunate enough that I got the job, and I've been there ever since, and it's perfect for me.
Does it mesh with your idea of new ideas in art, in visual art?
Yeah.
Does it mesh?
Yeah, it does. It's actually, it keeps me exercising that creative muscle, and it's a whole different medium from painting, you know, and I'm always meeting creative people because it is an art form. You know, contrary to what people may think, it's an art form, and the people that work in television or film or all that, they're creatives, you know, so it keeps the juices flowing.
Can you tell somebody is talented when you first meet them? Do you have to see the work? How do you make a decision on who's good, who's bad, who has something to contribute?
You know, I don't know until I see what
the product
hear,
is.
yeah. Because, you know, you could always be fooled. You don't know. And all of a sudden you hear someone sing a song, you're like, oh, my God, I didn't know that girl had it in her. You know, or, wow, this is incredible work. You know, as far as painting, I'm, like, surprised.
You're having a show in New York. What is the imagery like there? Are you showing the dolls?
Yeah, actually, I'm now, you know, now that working in television and film and video, I've actually moved from the paintings to actually using live photos with dolls in real-life situations. I actually brought a couple of short little reels. I do them like storyboards, and I blow them up 20 by 40-inch prints, so they're pretty impressive when you see them. So we could actually show that if you like.
Well, let's see them. There's a bar. Darrell, who were those people?
Well, that was Times Square, actually. I was just in New York.
You shot it actually
Yeah,
on
I shot it
location?
on location in Times Square. It's not really a music video. I just set it like that so we can get the effect of it. But I shoot the dolls, you know, right in real life.
Where did you find Miss Barbie?
That was a thrift store find, you know. It was, the dolls were a thrift store, and I saw them, and I said, oh, I could do something with these dolls now.
And who's her Chicano male lover?
I guess that was like a 70s sexy Ken, but he just fit that perfect.
Oh, he's perfect.
Yeah, he's the perfect guy that, of course, the stalker, that other character that comes in would naturally...
be jealous of.
Right.
Who is the stalker? Where'd you find him?
That's like an Australian military officer doll, you know. I found that at a thrift store. And so I just go through thrift stores and find, actually that's how I get a lot of my creative ideas, going to thrift stores and finding little neat things that inspire me, or the 99-cent store of all places.
Your show in New York is where?
It's at City Without Walls in Newark, and it's called the 19th Annual Metro Show, and it's going to be traveling to museums and alternative spaces throughout the country.
Well, now the scenes you just showed us, they will be blown up photographs?
Actually, what's in that show is, prior to these big ones, I did series like a storyboard, you know, for a film or whatever, so it's 6 panels of the dolls, and you kind of get the situation. The title of the piece is Puppenspiel.
The odd thing about it is they look absolutely at home in Times Square. The size of the dolls doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah, I use I just change my depth of field. And
does that guy do any murdering or any killing, the evil man?
The evil man, no. So far he's only been
stalking her.
It's not so much her, but you get the feeling that someone's watching all the time. I put together another one where it's the same, that other character, the stalking character, and it's this girl he follows in Times Square during the day. So we could show that too, you know, if you want to roll that. Yeah, it's amazing how his face seems to change. I mean, the doll's face is, I mean, it's sculpted, so it doesn't, but it's just like, you know, working with shadows and angles. It's almost like you could see his face change and the mood of the scene through just a slight change. I mean, maybe we don't need actors anymore, just do dolls.
My last question, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years, hopefully still creating and growing and doing new things. I have no idea. I mean, to say where I'd be, I'd probably shortchange myself because, I mean, I may be doing film, I may be oh, actually, I'm working on performance pieces now where I incorporate video, painting, and actors on the stage. And
where can we see that?
I did a performance at the Whitmore Lindley Theater last year in June, and the new one will be to be announced. I'm working on another performance. It deals with the childhood growing up and all that.
Thank you, Darrell. Art is not for everyone. It never has been. It never will be. But for those of you who love it like we do, we want to turn you on. I'm Molly Barnes.